Good morning. Today is March 7th, and it's a blustery day out here today. The winds are probably upwards of 30 miles an hour, so droning. I'm actually looking at a freshly broken tree over the camera right now, so droning is not a likelihood just because of the wind. It's kind of off and on, and you get the drone up 200 feet and then the wind hits it. It's just a bad situation waiting to happen, so that's not on today's agenda. What is on today's agenda effectively is going to be a lookabout again with local vigilance for the most part until I figure the end of the month, or at least the next few weeks anyway. If we get a warm spell up in the Green Mountains area or other areas, we'll go there possibly just to break up the repetition of this, because this area is basically seemingly quiet although walking in I heard 3 likely gunshots, but possibly wood knocks. I'm going to err on the side of what sound like rifle shots right now, but so there's that. I'm going to keep my ear open on that as well. That's over the hill immediately to my east over here. But we're going to have a look around, check for sign, and while I'm heading up the hill, I'll think if there's any kind of an op-ed to add to the video, because the community's never shy on offering content up as far as opinion pieces, because there's always some kind of nonsense going on. But that's a plan for today. Enough of me rambling. Let's hit the trail and, well, get off the trail instead and see what we find today. You can hear the wind. It's roaring enough. Off to the east, I'm still hearing what I'm going to assume are gunshots. The potential cause of that, if you go through the woods about 2.5 miles, give or take, that's more an estimation than an actual figure. There is a person who lives in a trailer out there, and he's far enough out in the woods, kind of has a homesteader kind of vibe to him, that he might take the shooting guns there at a range on his property, for better or for worse. Interesting, he's a homesteader, since at that point that would place him in Massachusetts, which is pretty much regarded as a blue state. But anyway, we're going to hit the wood line and hopefully not be the victim of a widowmaker or anything with the wind blowing the way it is. Have a look about, and we'll report things as we need to. Beyond that, I've been able to listen to about 6 or 7 of these knock shoot noises, and I'm fairly convinced that they are in fact gunshots. He's probably doing practice in his backyard over there, so it'd be nice if it wasn't. But that being said, this is now that we're in March, we're getting to the time of year when you do perk up in this area a little bit more, because if conditions are right up north, then we might get some company down here. Part of a migrational theory I've had for a while, but it doesn't happen every year. That's why it's called local vigilance as opposed to an active area. But we're going to get a little ways in the wood line, have a look, cover a couple of different areas like that today, and you never know. Every time that I start to get a little cynical about things on the subject in this area, something happens. So maybe today's that day. But we're going to end the segment for now. We'll come back in a little bit. Okay, so we're back. We're a little bit in the wood line now, and I'm still hearing the shooting with the wind roaring. I don't know if you can on camera, especially with me yapping. But I didn't mention before on the way in, I saw a combination of deer and coyote tracks. And it's about 35 degrees, so with the wind going, I would have thought it to be colder. It's actually, as far as your hands not having gloves on, that's actually not that bad so far. I have gloves with me, of course, but it's not really that bad so far. We're going to enter into a logged out section in here in a moment, and then decide what direction we're going to explore in. And would like to not go through that puddle right there, only just because leaf-covered puddles like that have a tendency to be deeper than they look. But I also was hoping to have a little more snow on the ground for tracking purposes. Walking through this stuff is either come up on something or you don't. I'm holding up the camera to see if you can get any sense of the gunshots out there. It's like an even cadence, and then it'll stop every so often like he's reloading, which makes me think it's the guy in the trailer and he's got like a shooting range out there or something. Hopefully, that's a weird looking tree right there. Kind of a weird notch on that, the way that broke off. But anyway, trying to think of anything going on in the community lately. There's more of the same. There's conference season. The sham of a conference out of Oklahoma is going on. A group held by a group I don't hold in particularly high regard. Again, Expedition Bigfoot's crew is predictably going to attach themselves to the mechanism that is the International Bigfoot Conference, mainly because one of the stars is the guy who promotes it. So not really a lot of surprise there. What else? Some scrutiny given to what's become known as the Zorth cult, which, although I'm not fond of the group, the conversation it began in, the crew there did raise some interesting points regarding licensing, zoning, permits, and this kind of thing, given that this guy is basically holding, I guess you'd call it a retreat, in his backyard. And they I mean, first the background on this. These guys have been on this guy's case, that being Matt Johnson, for years. So one could argue it might even be personal on some levels, which, you know, if it is, whatever, that's their obsession. But they make some interesting points. Now, I would just straight up take this in a more cult awareness kind of a thing. In the time that Matthew Johnson has become an increasing fixture in the Bigfoot community, for better or for worse, I would argue for worse, as he has evolved, if that's the right word, as a Bigfooter, then as time has gone on, more and more red flags have kind of popped up. I mean, for a while, he had his portal, and all the batshit things that happened there were claimed. And then along came Zorth and the Xanu and the Tracon and all these things that he ripped off from some kind of a sci-fi novel. Once upon a time, somebody actually quoted the likely source novel that he stole all this shit from. So before anyone gets too deep into, you know, Camp Xanu and all his lovely things, it actually is something that he took from a sci-fi novel. And the whole plant people thing, that was one of the more esoteric ideas of Michael Merchant before Matthew decided he was going to latch onto that and appropriate that for his nefarious needs. But, you know, the word cult is applicable because he has people coming in there for healings. And I guess there was a guy who passed away. He was a cancer patient who has been, as I almost fall there, it has been kind of speculated that he gave up on cancer treatments to go with the Zorth method, and now the guy is no longer with us. So, no offense, Matt, but it looks the way it does. You kind of have a Kevorkian vibe at this point, and that's not a compliment from me. My opinion on that front is you can argue in favor of euthanasia and all that. But when you look at the actual background of Dr. Kevorkian, he's not the guy for that sales pitch, honestly. But gotta keep an eye on the whining sounds of the trees to see what might want to come down on my head. Yeah, you can tell this is a logged out area to some degree, although it's been a while since I've been in here. Yeah, so I saw that because there was an interesting exchange between the mainstays of this particular group that shall not be named and some of the closer tied individuals to Johnson himself. And they always give the same pitch. How about you just go and try the Kool-Aid? And like, no. If it's all the same, I'm good without the Kool-Aid. Not that I engaged Dr. Johnson. I'm not even going to call him Dr. Johnson. There's been rumors that he was relieved of his therapist status, and even a therapist is not technically a doctor. So, you know, wanting to call yourself Dr. Matthew Johnson is, where's the doctor's license come from? Are you an actual medical practitioner? Or are you just full of it? We're going to work our way back up here a little bit. I might take a break. Well, actually, we're back into stuff too, into like snowy stuff, so I can look for tracks a little better. The shooter might have gotten bored too. He hasn't shot a little bit in a while. So, yeah, that's my thought on that. Other than that, not really sure of any other conferences going around. I really don't have any particular opinion of the international one. I don't really pay attention to conferences past the point. If you're familiar with my rants on Facebook from a couple years ago, then you know that I'm not really a conference going kind of guy. I prefer to be out here looking around for stuff. And the conference goers can go and do that. I think it's really just a combination of socializing and merchandising. So that really, you know, that's for other people, I guess. I'm trying to figure out which way I'm going here. I'm just kind of following this trackway. Which one of the logging vehicles probably made a while back. I was actually trying to go over this way and keep having to step over all this stuff that was downed before, and I guess I don't have a choice. But yeah, so I guess that's all that's going on. So I'm going to look around a little bit more. I might take a break from the segment only because I have to walk and step over stuff and pay attention to that. I'll be back in a few. Okay, we're back. We've moved to another location. No real tracks and not a lot of snow up there. I went through a snowy area to get to this location. Not really a lot of tracks around here either, but like you see, the snow is patchy. But I'm gonna try our luck up this way. And it's a little bit of a side trail that opens up into a couple of other logged out areas from probably about 4 years ago. So there's a couple of logged out meadows and a lot of pine, as you can see up there. Kind of a piney area. Potentially a pass-through point when certain visitors are in the neighborhood. A couple of years ago, specifically in 2013, I followed a trackway that was over the other side, get my hand in there, the other side of that hill when they were doing some of the logging. And it would have put the creature right in line to kind of be behind a whole lot of pines and kind of watch the guys as they were working, which was an interesting find for the time. I think it was a previous segment when I said every now and then I'll get kind of cynical on this area, and then I'll find something like that and your juices get flowing again. So far, any of the tracks in here are going to be kind of recent too, because this is a snow drop, not a deer track. This snowfall occurred last night, so any newfound tracks are less than 24 hours old. So pays to notice little things like that too. The weather and when snow would have been applicable. We've had a couple of warm days where a lot of the dusting from last week probably melted and then got reapplied last night. A couple of really big, hold on, mushrooms on this log right there. If one day I'm going to get that to point down right there. And those, if I haven't mentioned before, are good for starting fire if you have nothing else to work with. If you break them up into pieces, they're a good fire starter. Probably mentioned that in the video last year or so, but this might be a combination of snow in here because it's back in the shade and might not have melted as readily. But kind of entering the outskirts of the logged out area now. You can kind of see the stuff in the undergrowth where they left stuff behind. I think they could have done a better job cleaning up, but that's just me. So what was that? That almost sounded like metal. Interesting. I just heard something that almost sounded like a dull metal thud. There's no one out here though. Weird. Maybe I'll probe down the hill a little bit on the way out. Now in that second spot you can hear me walking through water. Muddy, cold water. Partially frozen. Partly ice, partly mud. Always a winning combination. This is always kind of a weird time of year weather-wise too, when it's been like a mild winter, because you still have to contend with some winterish conditions. But it's been warm enough that the permethrin has come out, because there was a guy on Facebook the other day who I guess is in Pennsylvania somewhere, and he went out into the woods and he comes out. I guess he didn't apply his Dieter Permethrin, because he's got on his leg where he's got his camera, he's got like 10 different ticks on him. So they are out. And specifically, if you're in northern New England, I may have mentioned this previously too, the moose population is being besieged by a type of tick I was previously unaware of called the snow tick. They are, one, crappily active in the winter, and two, but more to the benefit of spotting them, rather than like deer ticks, which are very small, snow ticks are almost like a half an inch long. So they're big, and as a result, they're easy to see. This is a new fall right here in the last couple of weeks. That right there fell from up there. You're not working? Fine. I was just kind of fiddling with the camera because I was trying to zoom in on it, but I guess the zoom isn't really necessary. The zoom wasn't working though, for whatever reason. Part of the camera's personality, I suppose. Humor me. Okay, we're back. What I was trying to do was this. So yeah, you have to be mindful of ticks right now, and I'm kind of discouraged here because there's like really no tracks of any kind along this trail. Normally, this time of year, I haven't seen like a moose track in here in forever either. Kind of a bummer. Now we're in a grassy area, but all pine. As you can see, it gets pretty thick in there. So, we are going to probably actually take a break from the segment, cover a little more distance, and then resume once we're into another area. There's not really anything going on here other than the scenery, which, while pretty, it's kind of quiet. I can only ramble into the camera so much. So we'll go that route. So we're back, and if the lighting allows, we have found these tracks right here, which from the pacing, the size, and the stride length look to be coyote, I think. Unless it's a coyote stalking a deer. That one kind of looks like a deer. These look more canine. But they literally just started as I'm walking up on the second of two logged out meadows over here, and then I think a horseshoe again, lose the trail because you run out of snow. But got another patch down here. Let's see if we pick them up again, or if he kind of came out from the left on the from the tree line. Let's see if he continues or if he popped back in. Hard to tell. I'm not seeing the tracks anymore. He must have popped back in, or he's staying over in the leafy area. I don't really see anything. That could be a trail. Actually, they are here. You can see him kind of in the mud. Yeah, they're back. He's still on the trail here. So, to my point from before, these, and then he goes back in here, over that way. These would have been within the last 24 hours, because that's when the snow came in last night, right after dinner time. So you're probably talking between 6:30 p.m. last night and now he would have come through, because that's about when the weather hit. Not that it makes it any more fascinating, it's just kind of good forensic work to know that kind of thing and be observant. Coming up on the meadow now, up here ahead. And again, because now that I know how to use that zoom function more, this is what we're coming up on. It's not a big zoom, but it's one of those things where I kind of gave up my manhood for a few minutes, and I actually read the instructions, and lo and behold, I found out this thing actually had a zoom function. I never thought it did. You read the instructions, you actually can find something. When we get into summer and the wind isn't so crazy, and I get the Mavic Mini out more, there's a whole set of features on that that I have to figure out if there's going to be decent use for. There's like a follow me mode, so you could, more from a cinematic mode, mainly because the Spark has a flight time. I think I've gone through this 1,000 times, but has a flight time of 16 minutes versus the Mini that has 30 minutes, just shy of twice as long. But it comes with 3 batteries that all charge at once through a charging bank. So with all 3 batteries at full capacity, that's 90 minutes of videography to play with, and that allows for more consideration for when you go into an area. We're going to do 2 things here. We're going to walk over into the meadow, have a look over here, and then there's like an old trail down here that's been forgotten. It's not a blue blaze trail. The older ones are like a red blaze trail, and we can take that to a degree, but then it comes up on a land trust area that, not being a town resident, I'm not allowed in there. But I also don't know that I would drone over them, mainly because they seem to really like their privacy. It's a secluded, very family-friendly oriented kind of place. So intruders may not be appreciated. So as we walk out on this, we don't really have a lot of snow. But just to get a scenic shot of some of this, they kind of thinned this out, but then the undergrowth took over again. So you could have deer and coyotes in here. And not that it has anything to do with anything pertinent to the video, but just I read recently that if you were to raise a coyote pup from very young age as you would a domestic dog, they become rather loyal and make for, good pseudo dog. Although this being Connecticut, a couple of years back we had a woman who was mauled by her pet chimpanzee, and that set the tone for blue statism to kick in. And you're lucky they let you have hamsters and gerbils at this point, let alone anything more exotic. I think they still allow for like snakes and iguanas, but that's probably your limit in the exotic pet world. Not like Ohio, where it's a freaking free-for-all. We're going to get to where that big tree is. We might... actually, we're going to go back the way we said we were going to go, because we come up on that land trust area. They have it blocked off up here. That said, I've never seen anyone actually patrol it. But they say they'll prosecute for trespassing, and rather than get into that dilemma, they want to have their peace and quiet. I get that. If I lived out here, I would too. I wouldn't be an ass about it, but I'd still, anyone's on my land hiking or something, I'm going to want to know what they're doing there. One day. So we're going to go down the other trail now, down that Red Blaze Trail for a bit. Check down in there, see if there's any more snow, because we're out in the sun now. The snow is kind of packed it in, so there's not really a lot of tracking to be done, unless you hit something in the mud. But we'll do that. And because, I mean, what we're looking at right now, one day I will hit the button in the right direction. As we go down, you can see it's like swampy grass, and the best you're going to get in this is like a vague depression, something like that, which really doesn't lend a lot of definition, if you get anything at all. So we're going to go inside the tree line where there's more shade and maybe there's more snow, and maybe we find some tracks in there. And we'll wrap up this segment there. But I'm also debating whether or not this is going to be a two-part or like a multiple day video like some of the other ones I've done recently, because tomorrow the droning conditions will be a little bit more civilized than what we have right now. I have a rule of thumb: if you're not even out of the house yet and you can hear the wind outside, you already know the drone isn't going in the air. Just because that usually indicates a level of wind that's well above 20 miles an hour, and that's well past the Mini's ability to handle. I may be adding, I didn't bring that up yet, I may be adding another drone to the fleet, a PowerVision Power Egg, which, aside from being wonderfully bizarre, looking like a flying cross between a quadcopter and an ostrich egg, the thing has a big 4K gimbal at the bottom of it, which, according to the specs, covers almost a 290-degree pan around, as well as up and down and all that. So if it can do that much, that's... Plus the thing's a big sucker, so it's probably a whole lot more resistant to wind. It seems like the heavier the drone, the more the wind gets like freaking ignored. So I may have found our coyote friend has come through here. He came through here, just to quickly show you that. He's come through. He's basically been following, well, I'm following him, if we're keeping that honest, but we're also walking by one of my favorite thinking spots. Once we get in here a little further, it's a spot where I kind of came to be alone with my thoughts when my co-founder of Nesin passed away a couple of years ago. Rest in peace, Dan. I still think that was due to malpractice. I hope the family pursued that. Somebody doesn't go through surgery for gallstones and then they're all done and everything's kosher, and then a week later you're dead. Something happened. So whoever lives in the Rhode Island area near Woonsocket, I would avoid that hospital like the plague. If that's how they operate, it isn't good. Kind of an anti-review there, because you killed my buddy. And with that, we'll go back to a happier tone in the video. I just kind of sneaks up on you every now and then. I should put this video is dedicated to kind of thing in there or something if I remember to. So we had a patch of snow and the coyote went down this way. Kind of proving my theory that coyotes are, like bears, are kind of like they'll take the path of least resistance along a trail, given the opportunity. But not as much snow as I had hoped for, so we'll go a little further and then I'm probably going to wrap the segment up. Only because we have this big weird looking tree up here. This is a favorite in this spot too. It's just, you don't see like New England is known for like having these big weird trees. Let me do two things. And again, now it's not gonna, fine, we'll just go up. This big weird pine tree. Anyway,